I am about to rip out this whole garden behind me. It's all summer crops, but before I do that, it's gonna get one last hurrah because this weekend we're actually having my baby shower in the garden. So before the garden gets ripped out and while we're setting up for the baby shower, I thought I would do one last kind of fall garden tour to show you what's been growing, what really didn't do well, and how the greenhouse is doing since we planted it, because that, I think, has been a complete 180. We had a terrible summer in the greenhouse, and now it's looking better than anything I grew all year. So there's kind of like a mix of things that we'll get into, because I've got like a lot of preparation stuff happening for the baby shower, and I'm hoping I'm not gonna like film a ton during it, but I want to like get a little bit of it because it is garden themed. I think you guys will like it. I'm really excited about it. And we did get some fall perennials in as well that are new to the garden that I want to introduce you to. It was just a really weird year. On top of just being pregnant and having no energy and time and capacity in general to take care of the garden, I think we had probably the worst heat waves in succession that we've had as long as I can remember. And so the entire month of July, the plants were under so much stress. I don't really feel like they were ever able to fully recover. So the production on everything from the tomatoes to peppers, eggplants, like my big main crops that I was hoping to get a ton of and freeze, was abysmal. Truly got handfuls of things here and there and couldn't even like do harvest videos half the time. I pulled the potatoes a couple of weeks ago and I did 2 15-gallon grow bags and I planted 1 pound of potato seed, which should have come up to about 10 pounds of potatoes that I harvested. And I think I got a pound of potatoes out of the pound of seed that I planted. I don't really understand how that works. Like, they look great. Like, they look like really great potatoes, but I think, again, they just got really stressed out with the heat and the soil never staying damp and they just couldn't make it. And then I harvested the peanuts, which I was really excited about. I didn't realize this about peanuts, but they flower and then there's this little peg, they call it, next to the flower that's supposed to make contact with the soil. And then that roots, like the peanuts don't grow off the mother plant's roots. They grow off of these peg roots that tip over and make contact with the soil. And the deer ate all of them off before they could make contact with the soil. So again, I think I got 6 peanuts, which is pretty much what I planted to begin with. And then there was the flax harvest, which I was planning to do a whole series on like growing a fiber garden this year and making my own linen and spinning it and processing it. That's not happening. So I did plant a lot and it grew really well and really easily on its own. I didn't have to do anything, but I just don't have the capacity to do that with it right now. So I think maybe I'll make some flaxseed pudding and just save the seeds and try again another year. So harvest-wise, not great. None of my corn germinated, but I honestly still feel like it truly doesn't matter. Like, I used to be so afraid of having a year like this in the garden because it's my job to show you different gardening things. And if I don't have things growing, there's nothing to show you. But the failures like teach us so much, and they teach us so much about the lack of control that we have. And it's also shown me that the garden doesn't have to be productive in order to be successful, because there were times this year where I was going through it, like in the hospital when we were trying to figure out what was going on with the baby's heart arrhythmia, and they were giving me a potassium IV, which is excruciatingly painful. And I was able to really like tap into feeling like I was in the garden and visualizing being in the garden. If the garden becomes a sanctuary and a haven and a safe space and some place you can retreat to, whether in your mind or literally in real life, does it really matter if we get harvest out of it? I mean, I know a lot of people are growing food to save money and to be more self-sufficient, and that's a totally different thing. But for me, it's always been about connecting with nature and feeling more at peace and having a gentle way to move my body. So I still feel like the garden was a success this year, even though it was the worst garden I've ever grown. All right, so let me show you what's going on here. You're gonna see a lot of like random stuff that's not normally here. We pulled these from other parts of the yard for the baby shower, and there's cushions drying. It's very chaotic right now. But this is the new blueberry beds that we just planted out. There's some strawberry runners going in here, walking onions, and I just put a layer of straw mulch. This one basil plant I wasn't able to let go of, even though it is flowering. This is a pineberry strawberry plant. The rest were just runners that I pulled from other parts of the yard, and I don't know what variety they are anymore. I know they're June bearing. And then the blueberries that we did are jelly bean dwarf compact blueberries. So they'll probably only get about like twice this size, which is great for this area. The walking onions will spread and grow up and kind of create a nice privacy screen. And then I left some of the chamomile just for a little bit of greenery. This stuff never even flowered. I don't know why. I mean, I guess it was probably stressed. And then this bed is the same. There's nothing in the green stalks yet. We're going to be putting our garlic in those, and I'll do a separate video on that. But then around this corner, I've been trying to really think about a better way to plant out these grow bags because I always forget that they're here. So it really needs to be something hands-off, low maintenance, perennial. So we have the sorrel right there. Obviously, she's thriving. This one has a self-seeded snapdragon in it. I don't know what I'm going to put in here. Maybe a rhubarb. I did put a hosta in here because those are edible too. This is a goji berry. It's tiny right now. You can barely see it. And then I did put some Jerusalem artichokes in that. So the grow bags are really great for things like the goji berry and Jerusalem artichoke that are aggressive spreaders and you don't want them taking over your garden. So that's why I added them in here because they won't get everywhere. The tea garden is looking kind of sad right now. Nothing really new going on in here. I have some blank spots and everything's just getting really brown and crispy and sad, except the nasturtiums, which are thriving. I don't know why. So there's really not anything new to report in those beds, which brings us to these. And I feel like from a distance, these beds don't look terrible, but it's when you get close that you realize just how bad they actually are. So these back beds were primarily eggplant, basil, carrots, zinnias, and then there were just a few extra pepper plants in here, which are still producing, weirdly enough, even though it's been getting down to the 40s at night. The Ichiban eggplant didn't produce very well all summer, but now that it's cooling off, it seems really happy. So I'm just kind of waiting and seeing with those, because the deer have stopped munching over here for some reason. Of course, now they've stopped, like now that the season is winding down. But there's lots of like zinnias that got way taller than I thought they were, and all these cosmos back here were self-seeded. And I just kind of let them go, even though they're technically in the path. And then the trellises have just been a disaster. I don't even know how to, like, this was Malabar spinach, and it just kind of like grew like this and never made a bunch of leaves or anything. The cucamelons always do this, where they take off at the last possible second. So we are getting a lot of foliage from that and some fruit. This bed is even more bare, because they have started just kind of like cutting things back as they get really diseased. But there's some just standard Italian eggplants. And then there was like, I think this was a super sauce tomato, but it's brown and crispy. It's not happy. Not happy at all. And some chamomile that's self-seeded. In the grow bags, I did a patio baby eggplant, which was actually pretty productive for a while there. And it's putting on new flowers. Don't know if they'll actually fruit in time. Those were my 2 potato grow bags. And of course, we have to have a sun gold tomato. This poor thing, I feel like, has been suffering for a while now, but it's still putting out fruit, very prolific. So this middle row of the beds was all the tomatoes, and it's probably the saddest looking of all of them. You can see how crispy it is. I'm honestly just leaving this because it adds some greenery from a distance, and for the shower, like, I don't want the beds to look completely empty. So there is still some basil in here, but I have also started direct seeding some fall crops. We'll see how they do, because these beds get like way too much shade this time of year because of this tree line. The sun starts to drop below the tree line, so it's in shade way too much of the day. But there are still some green tomatoes on here, and I'm debating just picking them or trying to get them to form some color. They will turn even if they're green eventually, but they'll turn a lot faster if I can get a little bit of a blush of color on them. And I also put some tomatillos on the sides, and they ended up just kind of starting to climb up the trellises, which is pretty cool. Like, I didn't think it would do that. I don't mind it at all. Of course, none of them really seem to have anything in them. Like, I've only picked a few, and I'm not really sure why, because it looks fairly happy other than this kind of leaf curling that's happening, which I believe is just stress from the heat. This bed's even sadder. All the tomatoes that have turned are really stressed and cracked and just miserable. I'm only leaving them on because if the deer come back, I'm hoping they reach for those first. They're like sacrificial. And this is my only squash plant that made it through the summer. I honestly don't remember what it is. I have to guess it's a Tromboncino Seminole or something like that, because everything else succumbed to the squash vine borer like immediately. And this guy is just thriving. It actually isn't growing in this bed. It's growing from this bed. And then I trailed it up into the empty spot on this bed just to kind of keep it off of the ground a little bit. And there was obviously a big blank space here. So no way is this going to produce mature fruit by the time we get our first frost in just a few weeks. But in the meantime, it's looking very pretty and lush. And thankfully, the front beds ended up being probably the prettiest out of all of them, which worked out really well. I did some celery in here. I did some Swiss chard, which I probably pull and put inside of the greenhouse. The nasturtiums, again, they're just the only thing that's happy. And then there were a bunch of like shishito peppers and jalapeno peppers in here that did pretty well. For some reason, the smaller peppers did okay. There's more bell peppers in this bed too. Had some marigolds get really stressed out. There's our nasturtium again. Cucumbers never took off. This is pretty much the extent of the kind of cucumbers I was getting. They get really stressed out with infrequent watering and drastic temperature changes. So there wasn't much I could do about that. And like this looks really cool from a distance, but when you get close, you can see everything is really getting brown and crispy again. Although we do have more cucamelons coming in here, which is always exciting. I really like those. There's also a banana pepper in this bed and my chives, and then that's the perennial baby cakes blackberry that we popped in here recently, and some more winter crops. Greenhouse is looking a little bit different right now because we're getting it set up for the shower. So my tables that are normally along this wall are running down the center of the room because we're going to have all the food in here. So they have the bug screen and it'll keep all the bugs away without having to cover everything individually. And as you can see, the beds in here are so happy, which makes me so happy. So this is going to be kind of like our dessert station. We've got cupcakes and cookies. The cookies are so cute. I can't wait to show them to you. And then all the rest of our sandwiches and salads are going to go along here. And you can walk around and look at this. My gosh. I mean, go back and watch the video where I planted this because it is shocking. I don't remember what half of this stuff is. Like I could tell you kind of just by look, this is some kind of kale, carrots, bok choy. These are the black Spanish radishes. Everything is just so happy. There's even some snap peas starting to trellis up this back wall here. I really resisted pulling all the summer crops out of the greenhouse that were infested with aphids. And as soon as I did, and I just accepted like summer is too hard in this type of greenhouse, I can do so much better with all the other seasons. And actually the summer in here, it was like a light bulb moment for me because now the greenhouse garden is the best garden I've ever grown for the fall in general. It's the best garden we grew all year, of course. And I'm just obsessed with how lush it is in here. And it's going to stay lush because we have the covers we can put over the beds and it stays so much warmer in here for so much longer on its own anyway. So I need to do another succession because all this stuff is maturing really fast. What's great about this spot is that it still gets a good amount of sun compared to the rest of the gardens this time of year too. So it's really allowing you to kind of maximize the sunlight that is available. And it's so multi-purpose because we get to have a whole party and incorporate the greenhouse into that too. The only other thing that I have to show you today is the favors that we're doing for the shower. So my mother-in-law had this spider plant and she propagated all these babies. Look at how cute they are. I'm obsessed. So these will be favors. Everything's going to be so cute. I'm just so excited. Not only because it's going to be so cute, but because I, for the longest time dealing with infertility, thought I was not going to get a shower at all. And I'm just so excited to be able to gather all my people together and celebrate this baby boy before he gets here. All right, I'm going to roll the footage from this weekend. I will see you next week. Thanks for watching.